Hi, my name is Patrick. This video is basically to tell you how the scale score is calculated. I mean, what are the factors that is influences the scale score and what you should worry and not worry about as far as the scale score is concerned. So if you've got a formula for scale score, I mean, there's a scale score that you calculated out here, R dash. So it depends on the raw score, R, what score that you've actually scored. G1 is the sum of mean and standard deviation of students in the first slot. So we are calculating for a student in the first slot. If instead of first slot, if it's second slot, then it will be G2. That means mean plus standard deviation of students in the second slot. This specific factor which is there is to normalize the difficulty level of the paper. So basically, if your paper is difficult, okay, if your paper is difficult, then this value denominator will become small. And if your paper is easy, the denominator will become big. So accordingly, your marks will change. G is common for all of them. So G is nothing but mean plus standard deviation for all the students. So G will not make a difference. It's same for everything. So what majorly make a difference is your score. I mean, students of your slot. I mean, it depends upon your raw score. How much have you scored? Definitely, it depends on the scores of students in your slot. I mean, mean plus standard deviation. So G1 will depend upon students from your slot, and this factor which is there is to normalize the difficulty level of the paper. I mean, your slot versus the other slot, etc. So that means when you're trying to solve a paper, don't think of the other slot because your scale score will not depend upon something from the other score. I mean, you will be compared with students mainly from your slot, right? So look at students from your slot. I mean, what I'm trying to put across is don't worry about difficulty level of the other slots. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, that slot was easy and my slot is difficult and therefore I will suffer. Nothing that way. I mean, it doesn't depend on the difficulty level of the paper. They normalize the score anyway. And because they normalize the score, even if your paper is difficult, your scores will be then put up so that it can be normalized with other students. If your paper is easy, your scores will be put down so that it can be normalized with other students. So don't worry about the difference in difficulty level of different slots. Now this normally happens when you go to slot 2. Suppose you go to slot 2 and the slot 1 students have come out and said, oh, the paper is very easy. And you go in and you say, oh, I have to score that much marks what slot 1 have scored, else my percentile will go down. It's a wrong thinking process. Your percentile will depend upon sort of how much you have scored in that and with people who scored in your slot. So if your paper or a slot is more difficult than the previous slot, automatically your scores will go up. Normalization process. So don't worry too much regarding difficulty level of the individual slots. I mean, that's not what you should worry about when you're writing the examination. Go with the open mind and try to solve the paper. If your paper is tougher than the previous slot, you need to solve less number of questions. If your paper is easier than the previous slot, you need to solve more number of questions. They try to make it evenly, I mean, equal difficulty level across slots, but there is always a case where the difficulty level changes a bit, up or down. It always happens. So don't worry about that. Okay. Also, don't worry about individual perform, how your friend has performed, okay, and you, because there are 1 lakh people who are writing the exam. So one person's marks, when you divide by 1 lakh, it becomes a very, very small part of the whole paper. So individual marks doesn't count. I mean, remember that almost 3 lakh people writing the exam, 1 lakh per slot. If there are 1 lakh writing in your slot, your marks are compared with 1 lakh people and the average is calculated. So it doesn't make a difference if one person has scored high or one person has scored low. Individual marks doesn't count. It's the average of all the 1 lakh people. So don't worry about what one individual has scored in your slot. Okay, and basically what I'm trying to say is focus on doing well in your exam. Your slot, try to do your best without worrying too much about what other slots, other people have scored as such. As long as you do well in the examination, you will be able to do well as far as the percentiles and scale scores are concerned. I hope this helps. We'll come up with one more video which talks about how to calculate the percentile scores and maybe how many students can score 100 percentile. Right? All the best.